Years ago, I was visiting my mom. Years ago, she lived in downtown Kansas City, her and my stepfather, in a loft downtown. And I went to go visit and spent the night, was hanging out, doing some stuff. And in the middle of the night, 3 a.m., all of a sudden, this light is flashing on the ceiling, and there's this extremely loud siren that's going off. All of a sudden, in the whole building, the fire alarm has gone off. Now, it's 3 a.m., I'm 13 stories up in a 26-some story building, and I did what every normal person would do in that moment. I got up, I opened up the door, I looked out the hallway to see if anybody else was coming out. I looked, I saw a couple heads, and then they went back in, so I went to the window. I didn't see any fire trucks, I didn't see any ambulances, no police. So I did what every normal, rational person would do. I went back to bed and tried to sleep through the fire alarm. Isn't that what you would have done? That's what you would have done too, right? It's actually really interesting about that because most of us would have actually done the exact same thing. Psychiatrist Dr. Stephen Gross writes this research. He shows that people, when they hear a fire alarm, they do not respond appropriately. Instead of leaving a building, they wait for clues. They wait for more information to arrive. Is anybody else leaving the building? Is there a fire truck outside? Is there an ambulance? Is there any other reason to go outside of the fact that the fire alarms are going off? They do not act with any urgency whatsoever. And if they do act to the fire alarm, do you know what they do? They do all the same things they normally would have done. They follow their old habits. They don't trust the emergency exits. They don't take the stairs like the hotel tells them to. They still try to take the elevators. They just continue doing the very thing they are not supposed to do. Classic example of this is from 1977 in Kentucky, the Beverly Hills Supper Club. There was a huge fire in a building that could hold almost 1,000 people, and there was a fire. They were over capacity, running about 1,000 people. They were actually, capacity was about 700. They were over capacity at about 1,000 people, and a fire broke out in the building. 165 people died. 165 lives lost in the fire. Now, when forensics came in to begin looking for answers as to what was going on, of course, they're trying to figure out the reason for the fire. They did all of that. But whenever they started to discover bodies, they found something very interesting in their forensic science. They discovered that many of the victims had died waiting to pay their bill before leaving. They were just still there at their table. Some of them were at the line at the host table, just waiting to pay the bill because that's the thing you normally do. You don't leave the building with any urgency. What is it that keeps people from changing? You know, what it is that usually keeps us from changing is not even the fact that we necessarily love our old ways. Most of us are just afraid. Most people are afraid of change simply because of what it means they might lose. You're familiar and comfortable with your old habits, your old ways, the places you go, the things you do. You're comfortable with them. Anything new means I don't know what I'm going to lose with this thing over here that I'm comfortable with. And so when the fire alarm of life goes off, we do not usually respond the way that we should. Maybe you've been there before. Alcohol is ruining your home, ruining your family, but you can't imagine your life without it. It's just been there so long, you can't imagine going another way. And a change means uncertainty. And you're afraid of the common path you might lose, and so making the move to freedom and to the other side of alcohol is difficult because you're giving up a thing that you know. It's not necessarily that you love what's happening. You may even know it's destroying you, but you're afraid because you don't know what the exit holds. Maybe you're there with anger and bitterness as they burn down your relationships. but you've been angry and bitter for as long as you can remember, and you can't imagine your life without it. And so you just hold on to it because it's comfortable. It's the path that you're already on, and you're afraid to lose it because you don't know what life is even like without your anger and your bitterness. Some of you hear God's voice calling to you to turn from self, to follow Jesus, but you don't know exactly what that exit holds. And so you kind of keep doing your own thing because you're afraid of what you might lose if you're not in control. And then people of faith live this rhythm, and they come to church on Sunday, and they say on Tuesday, where's God's power in my life? Why are things not different for me? Why does everything seem to be working another way for all those other people? But for me, I can't, it's not working. Where's God's power in my life? So we're going to walk through Jonah chapter 3 today, and we're going to wrestle with this very question. What happens when God's voice calls you and you have the opportunity to move away from a common, comfortable path to something different that is actually better for you? How will you respond? Before we dive into Jonah 3, we're going to pause, pray, and just ask God to be with us in our time. So let's pray together.